Who did you piss off over the years?
I've lost count.
Okay.
I've lost count, but I think that, it really goes back to the very history of the Blade with the Lily Vincennes and Nancy Tucker. They formed the Blade, it might have been in the basement of Frank Kammeny's house.
Wow.
But they were members of the Mattachine Society of Washington, DC's first major LGBT organization. But they made it very clear that they felt that they wanted to be independent from these organizations. They did not want it to be, it was then the Gay
Right.
Blade, to be a house organ
Right.
of the Mattachine Society or any other organization. And we really followed that example all along. So some of the organizations somehow thought that a gay paper should be a promotional
Sure,
organ
yeah.
and not a serious news organization. So when something went wrong with an organization, sometimes there was they would run out of money, they would have a problem where somebody screwed up somewhere, we would report it, and they would get angry. And some of the bars and the clubs, really absolutely not their fault, but sadly sometimes bad things would happen.
Sure, yeah.
Like a fight or somebody would cause a disruption and we would report it.
Sure.
And they wouldn't like that.
Right.
And they'd let us know.
Mm-hmm. And can you, Phil, think of an example, and I'm sure there were many, where maybe one of your accounts got mentioned in the news copy and they got their feathers ruffled? Do you ever remember a case where the news...
Periodically there would be something that would happen at JR's.
Yeah.
And Lou would report it and I would go, oh God, Eric's gonna kill me.
And he did.
And he did, and we'd move on. And he continued to be one of my best accounts throughout the whole...
But we both lived through boycotts.
Yes.
There was a huge Miller beer boycott,
Yeah.
and everybody at JR's poured it all in the streets one year. And then Miller, who had been a national advertiser, withdrew through Rivendell, which had a national ripple effect. And for some reason, we've been put out of almost every gay bar in the city at one time or another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you recall as being some of your proudest accomplishments at the Blade, Phil and Lynn? Was there ever an account that was a holdout for a long time, but finally you got them, or something like that?
Very early on, Don Michaels, the then publisher, again, was so happy with me, but disbelieving. I signed a men's clothing store, a high-end men's clothing store named Britches of Georgetown, no longer existing.
B-R-E-E-C-H-E.
Britches,
Yeah.
not bitches. Britches, like your pants. And it was very preppy, clean-cut clothing. I don't know if he wore from Britches, but he was very covetous of that account. And as it turned out, again, through connections, you could usually find a gay person at some company or business in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
It was a few decades later, I met Gary Duke, who was around now at restaurants, Julio's at 16th and U. I clearly didn't do it alone, and I'm appreciative of every gay person who's worked or mentioned in a meeting. I mean, if the idea comes from the top or the bottom, or it meets somewhere in a staff meeting and marketing makes a decision, it was good. But Britches was an early coup, and my all-time favorite was the 1993 March on Washington. I don't know what came over me. I was exceptionally organized a few months out, and I went to work on Saturday, and I thought, if I do this from 10 to 12 for 5-6 Saturdays in a row, maybe it will pay off. And I had a rather adversarial relationship with the ad traffic manager. So on Monday morning of the March on Washington week, sometime in October that year, he pulled all the numbers and gave them to the publisher, and they set the newspaper at whatever. It was going to be big. It was 80, 90 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Don walked by my desk and said, "So Brown, have you turned in your numbers?" And I was like, "Oh, no, you need them?" I turned in my numbers, and we went up to that 200 and I think the paper itself was 204, and we did a supplement with guides and maps and things that took it to the 260 number Phil remembers.
Wow. Man, 260.
Yes, and as it turns out now, being publisher, I see what happened next. Don complained bitterly that I was the only one who made money that week because the larger press run meant that the deliveries spilled over. I mean, the paper was this thick, so you can't get more than 10 in a bundle when
Sure.
normally you get 25. You can normally put 150 of those on a truck and deliver them once. He spent the whole weekend delivering that paper to places over and over and over again, and I guess that annoyed him.
Mm.
So sometimes it was a
Damned
success.
if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, you'll have to wait for the revenge novel to get all the dirt
Okay.
on my previous
I
bosses.
loved getting the Kitchen Bazaar account.
Yeah, you did, and I envied it so much. It was such a clean,
Do tell.
wholesome.
It was a Bed Bath and Beyond type store,
Uh-huh.
Kitchen Bazaar, and it was on Connecticut Avenue. They eventually, I think, had another location.
Several locations.
Or several and I had been after them for years, and one day they just finally called me back. It was astounding, and it resulted in full page ads regularly. G Street Camera?
Fabrics, pen camera?
Pen
Is that
Camera,
what it was called?
yeah.
Might still be there.
No, they're gone. But Pen Camera became a good account. Irving's Camera Shop on M Street, I'm still friends with him today, even though they're gone.
And I think the bigger point is, these were different. These were not gay owned and operated. We had a pretty good grasp on those, although those were the first to boycott us or throw us out if they didn't like what we were doing. As Lou said, the Blade wasn't a mouthpiece of a community center. So when we criticized, we got repercussions, and the first to attack us, of course, would be our own. The more considerate and long-term business decisions that came with our success
Yeah.
was about response money and
And the gay community in Washington
Yeah.
went to Kitchen Bazaar and bought whatever they had on sale. Or whatever they put in the paper, and it was obvious where their business was from.
so Schneider's on Capitol Hill became a really great account for me, but two brothers run the liquor store. They're right in the shadow of the Supreme Court side, the Senate side of Capitol Hill. And I made my call. They had the first fax machine ever in the city, which gave me the ammunition to talk Don into buying us the thermal paper fax machine that we got. You could double your business time spent with new clients that way. Anyway, the Schneider, the John and Rob Genderson. John was the business guy, and he was totally loath to do this. But there was a gay guy who worked as a wine consultant there on weekends. He was a DC public school teacher by day. He said, try it. They ran 3 ads. I got called in. I got chewed out. Total waste of time. Get the hell away from us. Well, how about this? Try one more ad and advertise only. I mean, they were advertising like 50 cents off for a 6-pack of beer. And I said, gay readers don't care. Standing at a register with a line of people behind you, you're going to say I'm gay for 50 cents? It's too risky. It's too Capitol Hill. It's too, you work at the Senate, you're not going to get your job lost over a 50-cent beer coupon. Anyway, they ran a champagne sale ad. And I returned on Monday, walked in and said, how'd it go? Didn't see a gay person anywhere. That's not what I asked, John. How much champagne did you sell? There weren't any gay people in here, Lynn. It didn't happen. It didn't work. We're not going to do this. And I finally, again, insisted, but talk to me about your champagne sales. How much champagne did you move? More than we've ever sold in any one day. And I made that face, the knowing, nodding face, and just stood there till he said, oh, okay. And then he advertised his specials for the next 5 years every week or something like that.
So what's the moral to that story? That you can't tell that they're necessarily gay, or we have a lot of straight readers, or what was the takeaway there?
I never considered that straight people had gone in there to buy champagne because of a Blade ad.
Yeah.
No, he had a huge gay clientele, and they weren't purple.
Yeah.
What he thought he was going to see.
Right.
Almost the same thing happened with a Chrysler dealership, Al's Chrysler dealer in Arlington. Buy an ad, okay, what do you want to put in the ad? They gave me like 6 prices and 4 convertibles. I went back at the end of the middle, at the end of the run, and said, how's it going? Well, we haven't sold any convertibles, but who's been in here? Well, a whole bunch of like girl on girl action, and they're buying minivans. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, you're selling vehicles, right? Just because some drag queen didn't come in and buy a convertible and
Right.
take off across the desert with 6 of his friends.
Right.
So, combating stereotypes, changing stereotypes, and alerting people to the response and reaction to an ad always led to more ads, because big community here in DC.
Lou, one thing that you often hear posited in different variations is that, you know, in the early years of the Blade, nobody else was telling our stories. Now you see LGBT coverage all the time in the big dailies. So what is your opinion of why we still need a Blade, or what does the Blade bring to the table that the other outlets aren't getting, in your opinion, today?
I think clearly we have it's good to see the so-called mainstream press finally covering our community, and some of them, like the Post, of course, when they want to have a huge amount of resources, being a large mega news organization. But I do think that we still bring a better grasp and understanding of the issues that are surfacing in our community, and we usually find out about them before the mainstream press, for the most part. Even though they have reporters now, we know there's a national association, the National LGBT Journalists Association,
Sure.
has many LGBT reporters that are with the so-called straight press who are on top of stuff. But I do think, though, that still there is a need, and we provide a function by being closer to the community than many of those other large news organizations, and on top of things sooner than they are.
We're also trusted. Again, we are the canary in the mine. We're the first to feel these things. We're trusted in a way, so a lot of people will call the office, will call with leads or email requesting assistance when they've been turned down by others. And finally, Lou's right. You're right with the question. But for most of my adult life, the Post has put gay people in the style section instead of the news section. Phil and I were scared when Bride magazine announced a gay wedding issue.
Sure.
And really were kind of curious, and I think it's the only time I've bought a Bride magazine in my life. But Bride magazine is massive.
Sure.
And there were 6 or 8 pages within their 400-page book that had anything to do with same-sex couples. The Blade is a bit wonkish, but thorough, trusted, accurate journalism that is 100% LGBT all the time. And that is our litmus test. And people count on that. People trust that. Rachel Maddow reads us so she can lead with other stories, or with stories that Lou or Chris Johnson break. Michael Lavers is internationally known and followed by mainstream, so they can. But even when they devote resources, they do it in the 10% or less, because that's who gay people are. That's what the LGBT community merits. The Blade is 100%.
Okay, Phil and Lynn, you've had a little hiccup in your Blade longevity, so you can decide if you want to go into that or not, but I'm going to ask each of you to close. What do you attribute your longevity at the Blade? Were you ever tempted to leave? Did you ever have other offers? Why are you still here in 2019, and what has led to such longevity?
I think it's because I'm fascinated in the subject matter. I mean, as a gay person, I came to Washington because I was, as some people put it that may not be used anymore, as a political junkie. You know, you're interested in politics, and Washington was the place to be. and I started in other areas, but as a gay person and someone who slowly but certainly got to know the community quite well, I find it the type of stories we do very interesting, and they have some significance. They can have an impact on the community, both internally and externally, by educating the general public and the general body politic, so to speak, about what this community is all about. So it really, I think, for me, the bottom line is a strong interest in the subject area.
Okay, Phil?
So I came to work at the Blade because I believed in bringing the mission of the gay community, giving it much more visibility and bringing it to the world. It gave me a good feeling to know that I was a part of that. I continued working there because of that, and I was able to make a good living. I left after Window Media bought the company. They forced me out. They wanted to pay somebody less commission than they paid me. And I left because I didn't believe in their mission. Lynn took over as publisher in 2008, and oh wow, I could again believe in the newspaper. And
How long was there in that little period?
2005 to 2008,
Okay.
June to August. And I could believe in the mission that we had and be a part of that good publication again. I really didn't like Window Media.
Okay. Were you in sales in the interim? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Phil was a realtor
Okay.
during the 3 years he was out on his own.
An unsuccessful realtor.
I came to the Blade in deep poverty and debt, and the commission sales aspect of my life up till then had proved I could make a living, and the Blade let me be me, or let me do me, as what would Oprah say. So it was a wonderful coalescence of, you know, my skill set, my need, and my identity coming together in a 9-to-5 format. And I've never really worked 9 to 5, 5 days a week at the Blade, but other sales jobs are horrible. And the Blade was a bit more flexible and structured that way. So I got to have a private life and a professional life that supported and augmented each other. I feel incredibly lucky and have, I don't know, if, you know, I've devoted to the Blade, or the Blade's, you know, made me, but.
Okay. All right.
Jenny.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your time today. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. Thank you to National City Christian Church for hosting us today.
And thank you to you, Joey.
Here's to another 50 years.
Thank you,
We'll
Joey.
see you again in 50 years to do another part of this, you think?
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Michael.
No way.